the reasons Taking Root was started is the emerald ash borer is killing a lot of trees. Sometimes we have to cut down trees. And did you know I can cut down a tree just by looking at it? You don't believe me? I saw it with my own eyes. If you don't sit down, I'm going to keep telling jokes.
That's a threat.
All right, welcome to the 2017 Great Tree Summit. Before we get started, I'd like to thank some of our sponsors for today's event. I'd like to thank, and these sponsors contributed money or door prizes or snacks, coffee, all the things that make this a fun event and makes it possible. I'd like to thank Spring Grove Cemetery and Arboretum, Blooming Gardens, ArborJet, Green Umbrella, the Nature Conservancy of Ohio, Davie Resource Group, Boone County Arboretum, Nate Torp's Nursery, Ammons Nursery, and my sponsor, Great Parks of Hamilton County. And if you didn't hear, sometime, you can't do it now, but at the break, if you did not get a raffle ticket, we do have some really cool door prizes, so pick up one in the hallway. The restroom is also in the hallway. All right. Today, I'm just going to go through the agenda real quick. In a few minutes, Matt Stenger, our Taking Root director, is going to give you an update of all the awesome things Taking Root's been working on this year. And then our keynote, Tom Smar, will fascinate you with some awesome projects he's been working on related to urban parks and horticulture throughout the U.S. And then Dean will introduce this year's award recipients. We'll have a short break, and then we'll have some panel discussions with some local communities and some representatives from those communities who've done some really awesome tree planting projects. And then after that, we'll have a Q&A session with the panel about community tree planting projects. And it'd be really interesting and helpful whether it's a school or a nonprofit group or a community group or a park or a church that wants to put on a little tree planting project. It's great to find out how to put that on. And then we'll have door prizes. Yay. Okay, I'll turn the mic over to Matt Stenger, who will tell us what Taking Root's been up to this year.
All the technologies. Thank you all for coming. Can you hear me? Yeah. Is it working at all? Okay. There we go. It's always exciting, this event, to get a whole bunch of tree nerds in the room. That seems like a problem. All right, take two. Hey, hoorah, here we go. If we're going to do that, Okay. Are we all set? Finally. Well, again, thanks everyone for coming. It's exciting to be here. We have a lot of big news. 2016 was a pretty exciting year for us. Maybe the most boring, but also the greatest thing that happened for us this year is we're a 501c3 now. Which is a great thing. We're off on our own. We've got a lot more flexibility, a lot more fundraising capacity, and we're excited for 2017 to use that ability to do some, hopefully, some very incredible things. Real quick, before we move on, I just wanted to thank a couple of board members who served on our board from the get-go, and for various reasons have moved on. Rooster Rhodes is retired and what have you, but thanks to, I think Lynn's floating around here somewhere, Kristen Wise from Green Umbrella sat on our board for a bit, Jim Ramkey, Mark Lindahl, and Rose Jacobs, thank you all for helping us get here today. And also a quick moment to say welcome to the new folks. If, what? Louder! Okay, I can do louder. For the new folks, in fact, now might be a good time if you are a Taking Root board member, if you could stand up, let everybody know who you are, so people know who to go to and pester for questions. And while we're at it, if you are volunteering today to help us make the summit work, to keep our bellies full of coffee and all these other things, if you could stand up and give a quick wave too. Yeah, that would be great. Another very exciting thing that happened this year, we got our first employee. Well, besides me. So Nicole, where's Nicole? Nicole's back at our table, so be sure to visit Nicole and say hello. And real quick, I just want to run through and welcome all of our new partners that jumped on board in 2016. Quite a few of them. And so we started last year. We have a project application process now where communities can apply to Taking Root for small applications of $2,000 or less to help fund tree planting projects in your community. We did 11 projects last fall, helped fund 11 projects, 250 trees were planted in 11 communities. We're doing them again this spring. We have 8 great projects lined up that we're going to be funding this spring. Look for that announcement coming probably in the next week or so. Those will be posted on our website and our newsletter as well. And then the next application period starts March 1st. So if you have a project in your community and you're missing funds, or maybe you need some volunteer help, or maybe you need tools and resources, you can apply for help with all of those things. We have a lot of volunteers that love digging holes. We're lucky. So if you've got projects lined up and you're just needing resources to get them going, check this out. On March 1st, the application will be up on the website again, and you can apply through June 30th, and those will be awarded at the end of August to fund fall planting programs. So that's coming up. We're very excited about that process. A big one that I just want to throw a special shout out to is the APHIS folks contacted us last fall and did big tree planting at a school in Bethel where most of the large trees had to be removed because of Asian longhorn beetle. And they were able to get out there and kind of reforest a swale there at the school. And in 10 years, that'll be kind of filling back in and looking great. So we're excited about that. Another big thing coming down the pipeline is energy-saving trees. We are looking for funding. This is an Arbor Day Foundation program where they basically offer trees for sale. They have a website you can go to. You can find your piece of property on the website and click on your property. It'll drop a little circle where you might plant a tree, and it'll tell you what your energy saving costs could be by putting a tree at that area on your property. At that point, then you can order a tree and have it shipped right to your house, or have we may have a tree pickup. So we're trying to find funding to get this program going. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll happen very soon and be just another resource for you guys and your communities to send your residents to, or for you as an individual to get a tree, put it into your backyard. So we're pretty excited about that possibility as well. The registry, this seems like something that comes up every single year, so I thought we might as well just bring it up again this year. The tree registry is, I think, a great thing that we're trying to do. It's a great way to get people engaged. What I would really like to do with it is make it not only a great way to engage people for us, but a useful tool for communities. So this is the part where I ask for your help, and you all say that you're GIS experts. But what I would love to do is build if we could make like a GIS map where communities who have tree locations already could dump that data in. And then we could also use like currently we have this by zip code, where it shows the trees that are being planted by zip code. So it'd be kind of two separate layers, but if anybody here has GIS experience and is willing to help us build this, I don't know how to do it, but if you do, I have a lot of great ideas to share with you. But anyway, just throw that out there if anyone is available to do that. I think it would be great, ultimately, if we could register trees and know the location of where each one's being placed, and then also have that region-wide database of community trees loaded in there as well. Be maybe a little more useful. Maybe, I don't know if any of you have comments about that, any ideas, but we'd be happy to hear those as well. That's what I just said. I think that's all I have. Quick and painless, and we'll turn it back over to Tom.
All right, thanks, Matt. So lots been going on, and just a reminder, Taking Root isn't Matt, myself, and the board. Taking Root is all of us in this room, so I hope you can join us. There's opportunities to sign up for some cool things. Matt, were you going to talk about specific opportunities for volunteering?
So just two quick things. If you want to go back and talk to Nicole, the Home and Garden Show is going on. We have a booth there. You can get in for free, which is great if you spend a couple hours talking trees at our booth. And who doesn't want to do that anyway, right? So it's a great opportunity. If you're available, it's running this weekend and then Wednesday through Sunday. So if you're looking for an opportunity to go, Nicole can help you out there. We'll get you signed up. And that's a free thing. And then coming up in April, on April 19th, we're working with, where's Tom Bowen? There he is. We're working with OVFF again this year to do a tree bagging event. We've got 3,500 trees that we're going to be distributing to local school kids through funding from Jim Moranis is around here somewhere. But we're going to be handing trees out. So if anyone wants to help us bag trees, that'll be from 6 to 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 19th of April, at the Glenwood Gardens Tech Facility. So those are the two next big things coming up. So keep us in mind there, and go bug Nicole if you'd like to help out.
AM or PM?
How what?
AM or PM?
Oh, PM. I don't get up this early.
Great. Okay, now I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker, Tom Smar. Tom is a seasoned professional with 20 years of experience in horticulture, botanical gardens, conservation, organic landscaping. He holds a master's in urban horticulture from University of Washington, Seattle. And he has worked for established institutions such as University of Washington Botanical Gardens in Seattle, and one of my favorite places, New England Wildflower Society's Botanical Garden, Garden in the Woods in Massachusetts. Tom's most notable work has been leading horticulture management in new urban and design parks, starting with the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway in downtown Boston, built on top of the infamous Big Dig, and the High Line in New York City. He's now with 21st Century Parks in Louisville, Kentucky, which is good because if he still worked in Washington, we'd have to pay him a lot more mileage to get here. The 21st Century Parks in Louisville is a garden and natural area surrounding the city. We are honored to have him present The Future of Urban Parks, connecting great green spaces and communities. So welcome, Tom.
All right. I'm going to try this out. I'm a bit of a projector, so I think it'll work out for this. Figure out how to turn it on. There we go. Everybody hear me all right? Hear that? I guess that was a good thing. When I was 16, I signed up to be at a Broadway, or not Broadway, I signed up for a community theater thing in my little town and did Guys and Dolls. And so I learned how to project, which was good or bad, depending on how much you want to hear me, right? So, but it's great to be here. Thank you. You know, it's nice to meet. I was just talking earlier with Tom, who just introduced me. You know, what I love about coming and doing a lot of different talks at different places is I get to see different communities and meet different people that I don't normally always get a chance to meet, or wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't have gotten up on a Saturday morning and drove all the way up here. You know, here I am. I get to enjoy this beautiful day and be excited about urban spaces. And I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of I call the, you know, sort of the big, sort of fantastical projects that are happening, but I'm hoping that they'll inspire you. And I also sort of have an underlying message, you know, talking about how these projects have brought communities together. But I really want to start as far back as we can think about as gardening in civilization, right? So, you know, when you tell people you're in the green industry, or you're really an avid gardener, or, you know, whatever, you know, title you're giving them, think of what they're probably imagining at that moment. You know, what's the images that cross their mind? And sometimes I think, you know, when we talk about gardening and the word gardening comes up, sometimes the most primordial image that comes in our minds is the Gardens of Babylon. This is one of the great lost historical things, and our architect, there's a term for that, I can't think of it right now, but you know, it's one of the lost great things in our civilization. And this is an artist's artist rendition of what that garden could have looked like. Archaeologists have recently found some evidence of the Gardens of Babylon, and there's a lot more that's going on with it. But you know, it's this idea of creating a fantastical space. Although Gardens of Babylon, where Tr5 was not an open public place, it was more for an individual or his court. But there were a lot of open green places. And sometimes the first of those places were cemeteries. And I know that seems really funny, but cemeteries tended to be the places where families would go, honor their dead ones, and then they would spend time there. And then there was a movement, especially in the United States, where there was the landscape cemetery movement. And this sort of spurred on a lot of sort of interesting horticulture work that started happening around the country and inspired. Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge, Massachusetts, is considered one of the big first landscape cemeteries that then encouraged other big cemeteries that then encouraged the other parks and botanic gardens to be built afterwards. So, this was a place that people could come and feel connected not only maybe to themselves, but to their past loved ones, and then also just enjoy some really amazing things. History moves forward, as it always does. Time is always moving forward, and our civilization got very complicated and messy, you could say in some ways, but also technologically advancing in around the Industrial Revolution period. And this is when people really started moving tighter into what we would think of as more dense cities. This is a picture of 10th Avenue in New York City, and we'll look at 10th Avenue in New York City a little bit later. But you can see sort of the magnitudes of congestion that's going on here. I mean, the multiple layers of transportation that's going on there, the buildings, the people walking around. There's no trees. I mean, you see nothing there. So these cities were very, they were blue-collar run, the labor sort of industries, the moving goods, making goods, and moving them. And it's not funny, cities just kept doing that. Even there was a period where cities, industry started moving out of cities. Cities still were looked at as big transportation hubs. We think of the 50s and 60s, 50s, people were moving out of cities, factories were moving out of cities. Cities weren't the places people wanted to be. And they started moving out, and we started having more transportation congestion. And so you think about that congestion, and you think about how cities have changed and morphed over time. Think how important, though, that green spaces were. And a lot of people in parks industry, we like to point to New York City and Central Park. Central Park was a pretty dominant project. I want you to imagine now, I don't have my pointer with me, but I want you to imagine we're looking south at the tip of Manhattan right here, and you see Central Park, big rectangle. I mean, it's unmistakable. You can see that from quite a distance. I took this picture out of an airplane window, but 2/3 north, so just slightly south of that pond, north of there, when Central Park was built, that was all farmland. So that was all sort of country estates. It wasn't the dense city you see today. So when they built that park, even then people were probably like, why are you building this big, why are you taking this land away from development? Why are you not leaving it as a green park space? But you look at it today and think how important is that nearly 700 acres to residents of that city, that they can escape from those concrete maze areas and get into that green space. Also, if we look through our history, the environmental movement was very strong. You think of the writings of Emerson and Thoreau and how they were sort of inspiring this idea of the environment and appreciation of the environment. But I think what's really interesting, before our national parks was founded, Central Park was built. So people were already thinking about how important parks and green spaces were, even before we started really saving our big tracts of natural land out throughout the United States. But of course, the environmental movement kept on moving forward. And this is Frederick. This is a picture of Frederick Law Olmsted, a big quote by him. But I think what's really interesting about this gentleman, there's certain people, and sometimes it happens in history, that they create. They may not be the sole person that came up with all these ideas, but they're the sort of identity of the movement. And Frederick Olmsted is often considered the father of landscape architecture because he started bringing intentionality to design. He was the man who said, I can design something and it will have everlasting impression on the landscape. And we see this, Olmsted parks are very popular in Louisville. We really celebrate our Olmsted parks. Boston was his home city, and actually he built his best park system in that city. And this is an old picture of that the ribbon of parks. So he would build parkways and park spaces. But also today, this is a modern map. You can see in that rectangle, that red rectangle, that park system is fairly held together. It endured time. People didn't destroy it too much. And actually, Boston just completed a daylighting project where they daylighted the Muddy River, as it's fondly called, back open to the air and the sunlight, and created and reattached the parkways and the park spaces. So I think that's really fascinating that the city today is really moving forward. But as I said, the cities really they can be very derelict places. In a lot of our cities, we have a lot of it. And I know right here, we're not far from the Boone County Arboretum. We're sort of far away from downtown Cincinnati. And we're in open, beautiful green space. But even in these areas, how do we bring people together? Most of the land around us is private land. How do people find a common collective space where they can come, have a healthy environment to be in, and as a beautiful environment to be in, and feel like they can live as a community? And that's really what I want to talk about with you today. And I'm going to talk about a few projects and about sort of that idea of how to come about that. So I thought a lot about this in my work and sort of things that are going on, and about how do we create great green spaces today. And sometimes land isn't being made new anymore. Maybe it's never been really made new, but land, today the only places that are really making new land is like Hawaii with volcanoes and such. There might be a few rare instances, but for the most part, we have what we have. And I think, in the case of like Central Park or other parks, we have some beautiful parks, existing parks. I call them historic, but they're not always historic. They're sometimes just existing parks that we really need to celebrate and restore and really do some interesting things with. We also need to think about how we can reimagine and work with spaces that have been abandoned. Industry, and many times the technology's changed, industry's moved on, you have old buildings or old sites. Unfortunately, there's sometimes Superfund sites that need to be cleaned up, but can then that land be used for something really cool? Also, how can we use redevelopment work, or development work that's going on? How can we use opportunities in development work to make great green spaces in them? There's a lot of urban planners and designers that have looked at housing communities, industrial communities, but I think there's a lot of opportunities where we could really use and do a lot of interesting things and provide great green spaces. And then also thinking about how we preserve ahead. You're in the land that's going to be settled next, in some sense. The city is expanding, right? The UN has predicted that in the middle of this century, cities will double in population size. And we have a great picture of Louisville, and we show Louisville when the Olmsted Parks were originally built. Louisville is just a tiny little dot, and you have the Olmsted Parks that were outside of it. And then we show the city, and all of those Olmsted Parks are surrounded and swallowed up by the urban development now. They're green spaces within urban development. And so parklands, and I'll talk a little bit about that, is that idea of building ahead of the development. So I talked a little bit earlier, a few minutes ago, about Central Park. Unfortunately, I never worked for Central Park. It's a really great story. I don't know how many of you have ever visited there, but Central Park is operated today by the Central Park Conservancy. And so not only was it a great model early on for park development and design, but then in the 80s, Central Park was a dangerous place to be. Nobody wanted to be there. It was terrible, it was scary, it was derelict, things were falling apart. And so there was a bunch of small groups that were coming together to try to fix things. And, they were trying to work their way in. And one woman stood forward and said, "This is great, but we need to do it better." That was Beth Barlow Rogers. She does a lot of writing on parks and green spaces, and considered a great leader in the industry. She came together, formed the Central Park Conservancy from all those little groups, brought them all together with a common purpose, and then went to the city and said, "City, you can't do this anymore. It's pretty obvious. You don't have the funding available anymore. Cities are being strapped with so many sort of civic responsibilities that they need to take care of. I mean, they can't even sometimes hire enough police officers, keep the fire departments in check. So they need, civic governments need help, especially in areas like parks. So you'll see a lot of what we call public partnerships, nonprofits that will come in and partner with the civic government and work. They can raise money in different ways, and then they can take on the responsibility to take on the responsibility to fix or to build or whatever. You're going to see a couple of those examples today. But Central Park has been rebuilt, been renewed. It has a new life again. The elm tree, this is Elm Tree Alley here, they're well taken care of. Dutch elm disease is very prevalent in this area, so they take care of these old trees. They've restored areas that the tile and everything is falling apart. Maybe this isn't a tree or land space, but this is such a beautiful historic place and people love to go in there. I often will walk in there, and you hear musicians will hang out in there. Beautiful violinists will be down there just playing, and it echoes so beautifully in that space. It brings people out, they just come and they listen. This is the conservatory garden. The conservatory garden was saved by a friend of Beth Barlow Rogers. Linda Miller. Linda Miller was a painter and the wife of a diplomat, so she was moving around all the time. Betsy told her, I need you to take on this project. She's like, I've never designed a garden. Well, she went in and she learned about it. So the conservatory garden used to have a conservatory in it, and the conservatory was long gone, but she went in and learned about the history of the garden design in that space. It's a bit of a formal garden, but she also went in and just researched and figured out how to make a fun space that still honored the history of the site, but also allowed for that renewed idea of a modern public space. And she designed it all, and then she became, after that, she got called to work on another project, and now she's sort of considered the mother of horticulture design in New York City. She's well looked up to. So the shot of that conservatory garden. Fountains are all fixed up. They have these beautiful hedges, and then they put annuals. They do bulbs in the early spring that come up, and then they put these beautiful annuals around their hedge plantings. Just adds some new life and color. Fun place. If you ever get there, I highly recommend it. This is a project I was very fortunate about engaging on and working on. Sometimes you just get the luck of the draw at some of these great jobs, but it was an intense job as well. So the High Line is a railroad bridge, and it actually sits in Manhattan again. You can see Central Park there. You can see where that white rectangle is, and then on the other side of the blow up of that white rectangle of the train line. It runs through a section of what we call the Chelsea, Hell's Kitchen, meatpacking district areas, right along the Hudson River. And it's about a 1.5 mile feature. It was originally built, we saw that picture earlier where the trains were running with the wagons and the cars and people were walking around. Well, New York saw that so many people were dying on 10th Avenue, they called it Death Avenue. And so they wanted to get that train line up and out of the way. And so they picked up the train line, they put it in the middle of the block. And the reason that it was great in the middle of the block, it wasn't over the top of the street. We've been to Chicago, you know how the L runs over the top of the streets. It makes it dark underneath there, but they didn't want that. And also, it allowed it to go through buildings or adjacent to buildings. So they took away this idea of having to load and unload onto a truck and then take the truck to the building, where now they can just unload and unload right out of the train. That was a great idea. This was considered the lifeblood of the artery of New York City. It was bringing in and out goods, it was feeding the city, it was taking out the manufactured products out of the city. Like any technology, unfortunately it had a short life of its use. It stopped running in 1980, probably even stopped really having extensive runs by the 60s and 70s. Part of it was torn down, but 1.5 miles of it still stood there, and it was seen as a eyesore, rusted eyesore, and as a problem. Of course, the neighborhood was also probably a bit of an eyesore. This was a neighborhood that had a lot of crime, a lot of buildings were derelict. Boy, if I could go back in time and buy one of these buildings, it's sitting on a beach right now. But it was a really abandoned space, and nobody saw the potential. The developers in the 90s started saying, well, we want to develop this area, and the city was starting to come back to life. And I think that's what's really interesting. Cities started getting a new, renewed life in the 90s. People wanted to move back into the city. They wanted to be able to just come out of their apartment, walk down the street, go to a restaurant or a cafe. And so those are the kinds of things that were changing. But they saw things like this as obstacles. And so there was an order written by Mayor Giuliani, who was mayor at the time, to tear down the structure. His advisor said, in the way. Well, people got up there and said, well, this is actually a really beautiful place. It really looks amazing. This is an unstretched landscape. Albeit, they're just plants that are surviving in the stone. In some ways we would just call these weeds. They probably don't look like much. But when you're in a concrete jungle, sometimes these kinds of spaces are what really make you feel magical. And you're 30 feet up off the street. So it all of a sudden gives you a whole elevation of something very different. These are pictures taken by a professional photographer at the time, and it really helped galvanize the project and how people got excited about it. And they got really excited. They started coming together. Two men were really the two people who made this project happen. They came together, happened to go to a meeting, sort of like what you're sitting at today. They traded business cards. They sat next to each other, didn't know each other, traded business cards, and both of them were at a meeting that was talking about what to do with this train line. And everybody else at the meeting wanted to tear it down. These two men came because they were interested in it. They thought it was a beautiful structure, and they were hoping there was a friends group there to save it. There was no friends group. Nobody was saying they wanted to save it. So they decided to start it. And when they started it, first, like I said, there was an order to tear it down. Fortunately, though, a new mayor came into office, Mayor Bloomberg came into office, and the whole time, Josh and Robert had been going out, reaching out, and talking to people. And they happened to talk to this woman who had an urban planning background, and lo and behold, she got appointed to be the head of urban planning for Mayor Bloomberg. And so she was in the pivotal right place to help this organization make this happen. It's a park owned by the city of New York, but managed by the Friends of the High Line. And as part of that process, they've got a great design team. Some of you may know this man, Pete Ouwelop. He's a Dutch planting designer. He's considered sometimes the father of the new perennial movement. And I'll talk a little bit reason why. I'm realizing I got to keep up with my time here. One of the beautiful things of this project, they had to tear all the weedy landscape up, even as beautiful as it was. But the designers said we want to keep that same idea. We want to keep it simple. We don't want to make this over elaborate. We want to keep what people already love about it. So they did. They redesigned it. They brought in, they took clues from what were already growing there, and they used that as part of the design. Pete designed all the landscape plantings, and we came up with a great park. It was a park that it opened in phases. First half mile opened in 2009. Great community outpouring of people coming out for it. What's really interesting, all the people who were against this project, and there's always people against projects, all the people who were against it said, nobody's going to walk up 3 stories of stairs to go and walk in a park. They thought their first year maybe they would be lucky if they got a couple thousand people to visit the park. The first day, they had to do crowd control and close down all the stairways as exits and only let people in one stairway because it was so crowded. People were desperate for this kind of space. They were engaged by the uniqueness of it. The second phase opened in 2011, but they were just excited by it. It was a unique, different kind of landscape. It was using plants that we would sometimes call weedy. Roost, the staghorn or the staghorn sumac. It was a a lot of people see it on the roadside. A lot of people use that in the garden. But here it really works. It's drought tolerant. It doesn't grow super tall, and so it really works as a great tree. And it's got great form to it. And there's a whole variety of plants that are in there. He used native and non-native, and he didn't choose 50-50. It just sort of worked out that way. We found 50-50. And actually, when we did the botanical survey of the weeds that were up there originally, they were 50-50, native and non-native. It was sort of interesting parallels. But just so he does woodland floor designs. He does perennial bed designs. You can see these look very natural. In that previous picture, you can see there's a stilby in there. It's not a native plant, but it looks great, and it provides that sort of vertical pop color that's needed in that bed at that time of year. Here we actually have the Korean reedgrass. So non-native again, but it provides that sensibility that you're in a wild landscape. Sort of seasonality. Pete's often quoted, brown is a color too. So not to give up on our browns in our landscapes, especially in the fall and the winter. But it's a place that people pose, they want to get pictures with the plants. The horticulture director of the Brooklyn Park, Bridge Park, told me once, she said, I'm so jealous of you. People go up there and they pay attention to the plants. They're excited by the plants. Sometimes we go in big square parks. People they have a plant blindness. They know trees are around them, but they're not paying attention to them as much. So it's nice when we can provide opportunities for people to pay attention. It was the first time I told my staff, you have to think about not only what you're growing on the ground plane or what you see from above, but also from what you see below. And that was sort of interesting to think about those being those three perspectives that looking at the landscape. Just real quick, watching very closely. It's a roof garden. It's a true roof garden. It has several layers to it. They put the train tracks back in. They actually removed them when they went to be waterproof and fix the concrete floor of the bed. And then we brought the train tracks back in because it was such an important part of that history of that space. And then we put soil layers over it. So there's a subsoil layer that's very well draining, and then you've got the topsoil layer, which is more of your planting medium. We put trees in. Sometimes we would hill up the soil so you could put trees into it. You have your planting layer that's going in. We did a lot. Everything was contract grown because Pete was asking for, because he's European, he tends to go with a lot of European cultivars, so you sort of have to contract grown. They're not something that's often on the shelf at a nursery. And we needed a large volume of it as well. And this is sort of the new landscape when it was first installed. And this is sort of not in the same perspective, but the landscape many years later. It's sort of interesting. Lawn up there. The lawn was the hardest thing. In a single day, we could have 40,000 people walk on this park. And you could have 35,000 people on the lawn alone. It became a mud mess and compacted mess really quickly. So we did a lot of work with it to make it safe and try to remediate the compaction. Unfortunately, we did a lot of closures of it so it could rest and recover. But we also couldn't use pesticides up there. Everything drifts off the sides. Even if I close the structure down, I still have pesticide drift everywhere. And we had schools and residences all along this. So we went completely organic on this park. She's spraying organic tea on the lawn. Help encourage the nutrient cycling that's going on there, and which also helps with the decompaction of the lawn. We had grubs really badly. The grub back down here, they got really badly in all of our garden beds. We used nematodes. We applied those heavily in the summer, and they parasitized the grubs and killed them. It was great. We saw after just one season of about 3 applications of nematodes that we dropped our grub problem down to 50%. We were keeping track of all this in figures. It was really nice. There's a stat line of nematodes. Clean up. So we cleaned up all the debris up there. We would chip it, and then we would compost it. We didn't have much facilities. We didn't have any land space. We were doing everything up there. So we had a small compost space that we could do some composting. And when we get up there, we made some nice compost. Got pretty hot up there. And we would apply it sort of as mulch or on the beds sometimes. We had to be careful. We need to keep the beds really lean on nutrients because we're growing a lot of meadow species. You don't need really rich soils to grow those species. So we were really trying to be lean with it. So sometimes we didn't know what to do with our compost when we were making it. So we checked around our neighbors to see if they needed it. Highline's a very popular place. Fortunately, mostly tourists. So I think unfortunately because there were so many people visiting, in 2015 they had 6 million. 2016 they had 7 million visitors. 2/3 of those people were tourists. So their whole programming, all their educational programs and activity programs, they focused directly at New Yorkers. They said, we're already got tourists down. Let's get our community, our media community engaged and come up here during our slower periods of time. I put this on here. We had to keep people out of garden beds, so they always walked into it. But we tried to provide opportunities for them to have fun and engage in it. We even created a kids area. This was a lot of fun. It's the beams exploration area. They actually exposed some beams and dropped the floor down on the structure, so that was a lot of fun. We coated all the beams with silicone so the child could hurt themselves. The switches, we repurposed them so they look little flags. Just trying to find little subtle ways that people can engage on it. A lot of different programming. We had a high school age or teenage work professional development program. We did food programs up there. We had art. A lot of times, as a gardener, we sort of hate art because it comes in and it invades our space. But art can be a really amazing way, especially when it's done very well, it can be an amazing way to lead people to understand. They see the art, it's something that attracts them, and then they can see the plants that are surrounding them. And they see the landscape differently. And I think that can be really amazing when it's done right. And you can get an artist to be in synergy with the landscape. Great staff. Takes a lot of people to work in these places. And that's a big part of the community, making sure your staff are part of the community and that they're engaging and talking to the people and being excited by it. We have a lot of volunteers. We work a lot with them. And, I talk about the community. The community, as I talked about earlier, these cities are developing and changing, and a lot of these urban parks that get impacted by a lot of construction around them. And these buildings, 3 of the 4 buildings here were all built after the High Line opened. So there's a lot that's changing and going on there. This is the birth of a skyscraper. That skyscraper sits on this site, which is a train yard. You can see the High Line wrapping around it here, coming right around. That skyscraper is being born. It's not on the site right now. It's being born right here. And it's done now, actually. I should get a more updated picture. But that's the skyscraper that was being born right here. And they're going to build 4 more on that site over those train lines. Train lines still operate and stay there. They're building a roof on top of the train lines and running these skyscrapers up there. So cities are changing, and they're changing fast. A lot of people are moving into these spaces. All right, what do I got, like 5 minutes left? I'm going to run through these really quick. Millennium Park, you also know Millennium Park in Chicago. It's a beautiful, great park. If you haven't been up there, I highly encourage it. Also designed by Pete Alwa up there. It's the Lorry Garden that he designed, not the entire Millennium Park. He designed plenty of plantings up there. And 15 minutes. Okay, 15 minutes. Great. Great park, great art in there. This is the Cloud Bridge. The Cloud Bridge is actually also referred to fondly by Chicagoans as the Bean. But it's sort of fun because people are paying attention to the sky. Like, how often do you stop and look at the sky? They're looking at themselves as well, but they also get to see the sky. I think it's pretty cool. It's a shame there's not some trees nearby that they can reflect into it, but oh well. But beautiful architecture. But this garden is really fun. What's interesting about this garden, when I've gone up there to visit and observed it, it's solely a garden. There's no art in this garden. They have art in other areas of the park, but not in this garden. This garden is a pure block of just focusing on gardening. And I think that's really amazing that the art of the garden is really focused on there. A few pictures. This is an aerial from it soon after opening. So this is an idea. The reason I'm showing you Millennium Park is it's sitting on a parking garage, which was formerly an old train yard that nobody wanted to look at. It was an eyesore. And so the city of Chicago said, development opportunity right there. They didn't take the train yard and turn it into something. They said, we need a parking garage, we need to solve some parking issues downtown, and I can create a performance space and great art spaces, a skating ring and a restaurant. They create all these things, and they're just for community. I mean, they make money, but they're not making that much money. The money goes back into operating the park. So I think it's just a really great synergy. But a bigger project that I want to talk about that's also taking a redevelopment opportunity was the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Greenway Conservancy. And this is a park that was built on the footprint of a former highway bridge. So I showed you that, when you think about it, most of our cities, unfortunately, have freeways that run along the water. Louisville has this problem. You can go to almost any city that has this problem. Boston has this problem. Its harbor, this picture, please. Yes, all right. This picture shows it. This is the highway right here, and it cut the highway off from the harbor, cut the entire city off from the harbor. And so they came up with the idea, we're going to open the city back up. It wasn't, we're going to put a highway in the ground, wouldn't that be cool? The idea was, we're going to open the city back up and reconnect the communities And by the way, instead of making it a whole bunch more skyscrapers on top of the city, on top of the space, we're going to put a park there so people have a place to engage and enjoy. And so you have the former, you see the highway there running? This is the park today. So instead of a whole bunch of buildings along there, they were going to build a few museums along there. Unfortunately, really expensive to build on top of a tunnel. So they decided, let's keep this all park space. And that's what it is today. And it's fun. There's several different areas. I call it sort of the downtown Botanic Garden of Boston. You can go through and see a bunch of things from Chinatown Park to the North End parks. So this is a previous picture of the North End Park. Notice the building with the fire escapes on it. This one up here. But notice that one. So this is what it was previously. This is what it is today. Big change. Popular place. The community that's just north of this is the North End community. It was an Italian neighborhood, mostly Italian neighborhood. Most of those residents always complained how they felt cut off from the city. Opened up the park. Now they complain that too many people are in there. So, but you can see, people go out. This was considered the front porch of their neighborhood, where they could come out, lay there, play with their dogs. There's a nice garden. Walkway there, red buds. Red buds are really hard to grow in Boston and Northeast, by the way. It's amazing these look this big. Sometimes they end up dying in trees today. A lot of different plants all along the greenway. You know, it's like what kind of opportunity you can come out from work and have lunch under native trees. You know, just having that kind of opportunity. And be in the shade of trees. I think that's really hard. So, you know, I've gone, or try it, go to downtown Cincinnati sometime and see if you can find a bench that has a tree behind it. You can get shade so you can have lunch outside. So people are stuck in ventilated buildings. They can't even open a window. And they get to come out and enjoy this. This is the Wharf District, all native. So here is an opportunity, again, somebody can come out and enjoy a beautiful sort of sweep of native plants that they would see if they drove about 2 hours due west in Massachusetts and went for a hike. And some of these things would be common you see we grow here. These are things that are in the horticulture trade or have part of our areas. This is Chinatown Park, really beautiful modern cage that they built there. Put in a lot of great azaleas in this area. This community, and I wish I had pictures of them doing their festivals. They really wanted a big festival area. So I don't think I have a picture of the festival area, but that was one of the big goals of this park area. Unfortunately, because there was so much sidewalk and concrete, those poor azaleas baked during the summer with reflective heat. And so one solution, as a quick solution, was I looked at the community and it said, what does the community celebrate as a plant? Chrysanthemums. Chrysanthemums are very revered in a lot of the Asian communities. So we did a chrysanthemum festival, sort of unprogrammed chrysanthemum festival. I just went and bought a whole bunch of chrysanthemums from the nursery, wholesale, plopped them in the ground, and created a moment and opportunity for that community if they chose to do anything. And years later, they started collaborating with things. And then you can see a little bit more there. Just added some pop and color to the area. At the time, it was really hard to have color. And then soil. Soil, this is where I really started learning and understanding organic management and soil management. Because we needed to work on that soil. Those azaleas would grow healthier if we had better soil. Yes, you still have some of the reflective issues and you need to move the plants around. But understanding soil and making sure you get good root depth. All of the turf, we saw really poor root depth on the turf, so we worked with compost tea and added compost back into the turf, and we got double the root growth. So our lawns would be able to live through drought issues, can help with decompaction a little bit more. It was just really great. We get, every urban park gets a lot of dogs on their lawn, so having deeper roots helps with that. Our hedges, we're seeing a lot of, I call them the psychedelic boxwood hedges. They would just turn like brilliant orange in the autumn. They're not supposed to turn that brilliant orange in the autumn or in the winter. And we found we really needed to work with improving roots. We did core composts all around them to get that compost back in the soil and trying to create those relationships with the roots of the soil. So it really made a great success. This is sort of the gardening from up above. How do you improve it? added a lot of new things into it. You know, when a park gets designed, it tends to get the base design, and then you go back in and create these sort of new things. This is one of my favorite things up there, was the fountain. The kids loved it. They came and played in it all the time. There it goes. You can start hearing the laptop. But great. It was a great, you know, people would just walk by and look at it. It was a way of engaging and capturing people. And in all the events, we had all these big lawns and we captured people. So a lot of community engagement. This carousel, thank you very much. This carousel was actually designed by school children. They went into the local schools, asked children what kind of animals they liked, had the children draw the animals. Then they went back, they figured out what animals they wanted on the structure, and they went to a carousel designer and worked out how to make these animals. So, you know, where else do you have a fox? You can sort of see a lobster in the background over there, a squirrel. I mean, this was fun. You know, horses are fun, a lot of fun. I come from the state of horses right now, but it was fun to have all these different animals. And trying to get some public art out there. This piece went up last year, and it created this whole excitement around it. People were talking about it. And just, you know, connecting. We're about trees here today. We're about green spaces. But how do you connect people to those things? One more. Parklands of Floyd's Fork. This is where I work now. Have any of you been down Parklands at all? I encourage you to come down. We are just outside of Louisville. So you can sort of see where we're at there. This is the 265 belt. There's a name for it, but I've only been there for about 2 years. I can't remember the name. I lived in Boston for 12 years, and I always referred to it as the freeways by number. So, but anyways, there's our Parklands. It looks like it's pretty far out, but it's actually, go back to it. It's actually, it is pretty far out in some ways. You can see the other parks that are in there. Remember we talked about people were all living in downtown Louisville when the first Olmsted parks were designed. Now they're dispersed. This is all getting built out. And it's heading in that direction. And so our founder said, what can I do to make a lasting impression on this community? He said, I can build a large park. And that's what he did. I need to update this picture. We are all open now. We just opened our last area in the fall of 2016. I have to date this one. We have 4,000 acres of land in our park. That's our large, overwhelming for me, because having come from the Greenway and the High Line, which is probably equal maybe 3 or 4 acres. 4,000 acres is a lot of land. We have a lot of natural lands. 4 major park systems. I just showed you that picture a few minutes ago. And a lot of different kinds of things that are going on there. We really want this to be the community place. This just gives, Central Park, a little under 800 acres. The Cherokee and Iroquois parks are in Louisville. Just sort of comparison, and then we're 4,000 acres. This picture just sort of shows the other large park system projects in the country. But really what it comes down to is about is how do we engage people? How do we provide opportunities for them? And I was talking earlier, we want this to be a safe, clean, fun, beautiful place. We want people to come here and really enjoy themselves and really have fun with it. We were talking earlier, Tom and I were talking earlier, and he said, one of the interesting things is a lot of botanic gardens, they that have admission requirements, they unfortunately, a lot of them are excited when they can maybe get 10,000 visitors a year or maybe 100,000 visitors a year, which is great. They're doing a very focused programming. But when you have an arboretum or botanic garden that's in an open park space, or you have open park spaces, we just had over 2 million visits in our park in the first year of opening. We're having that kind of engagement with people. Yes, they may come in riding their bike, but my hope is that we're having that kind of engagement, that then they can go on and support other important environmental and causes as well. We have a lot of natural areas. We have a Floyd's Fork. The Parklands of Floyd's Fork is named partly after. Floyd's Fork is a nice stream. People kayak in it. I also do a lot of erosion control management issues I do along it. In my work with my team, we have some nice buildings on site, but it's about that garden connecting to it. People rent this room out and I need to make sure that they have a great view when they rent that room out, and that's really important. That's an important revenue, then that goes back into the park operations. We also celebrate a lot of our farm heritage. We actually do farming right on the park in the land, some of our land, or we'll return some of those meadows, some of those farmlands back into meadows, and we'll maintain them as meadows. If Kentucky just stopped mowing today, everything would want to grow up as trees and forests. So you have to sort of manage these spaces to keep them what you want them to be. And I think that's really important. All these slides. This is the Strand. We dropped the slide in here for a very specific picture. And all these other things, which is fun to see. But we had bald eagles show up. So we're really doing a lot to provide wildlife in the park. I think we're hoping that this pair will, there's a pair of them that will nest in the park this year. That'll be very exciting. We have a lot of sort of formal areas of walkways and sort of garden-esque areas. We have the Silo Center, which has this cool silo that you can look out all around and see a sort of the landscape around you. At the foot of that, I have this little garden area. It's just old, I don't know, troughs or something from the farm. But we decided we wanted to plant something there. And I thought, oh, we'll do a vegetable garden there. Well, I'm in an open park, open, dawn to dusk, so people can get in there even after dark. The silo gets closed off, but one of my bosses were like, no tomatoes. We don't want to picking tomatoes and climbing up the silo and throwing them down. So I said, all right, how can I make this an engaging space? Does anybody know what this is? Looks like this is what? Cotton. Cotton, exactly. This is a cotton flower. And so we grew cotton and peanuts and sunflowers, tobacco, things that, I call them these sort of industrial crops, things that are still really important, that are grown things that feed our industry. And people have never seen. Most people have never seen a cotton plant growing. Most people don't even know what a peanut plant looks like. So we grew it. In fact, with our volunteers, they helped plant this. And then when we harvested the peanuts, they helped harvest the peanuts. And then we roasted them and gave them samples of peanuts back. So it was really fun. This is a new project that we're working on next. It's called the Woodland Garden. It's about a 10 to 15 acre site that will celebrate natural Kentucky landscape. And this is a condensed site. We're going to make it garden-esque again, but also work with the existing natural landscape that's there as well. And so that's a new project that we're breaking ground this year. And right now in the hecticness and the days of designs and plant sourcing and ordering right now. So that's a lot of fun. But it's an interesting site. This is a winter shot. But this is the site itself. It's has a nice topography to it. Beautiful old cedar trees on the site. Red buds bloom. Like I said, I'm in love with red buds because it's hard for me to grow them. A lot of diversity of plants. These are all taken onto the site. A lot of different things growing there. Mostly spring blooming, so we'll bring in some other seasons. Pachysandra, the native Pachysandra commons. You've never smelled these flowers. They're heavenly. There's a beautiful fragrance to them. One of mine, this is the first plant I learned. The Latin name, this is Hepatica paculosa. I just found this blooming, this isn't the picture, but I just took a picture of this 2 days ago in bloom on the hillside in the park, which seems crazy when you think it's the end of February. A lot of critters. But we're going to bring in intentionality in the space. We're going to provide seating opportunities. This is a picture of another place, but it's the kind of thing we're going to do. We're going to create rooms. And one of the rooms we're going to create is what we call rondelles. These are circular tree-planted areas that become sort of seating spaces, portals, whatever you have, and try to do something really cool and interesting with it. But I hope you come and visit. But as I say all that, these are a lot, like I said, these are a lot of fantastical sort of ideas. There are a lot of future fantastical ideas. This is a park that's being proposed in New York that's using an underground subway line called the Low Line. But all around the world, there are projects happening. People are excited. They want to do interesting and new things, and they want to engage people into those spaces. And really, when I think about what a park is or green space is, yes, it's great. It's great to be planting the trees there and creating the health. But when we really get down to it, it's also about creating the community and bringing people together in those spaces as well. So it's a big job. We got a lot ahead of us. There's a lot more work to do. But I hope I've inspired you a bit and you've enjoyed hearing me today. Thank you very much. I'll be around.
Wow. I'm awestruck and inspired. That's awesome. He said he'll be around, so I'm sure he'll be happy to talk with you later. As Tom mentioned, it takes a lot of grassroots people like yourselves to get some of these awesome projects going. And right now, taking root, I'd like to recognize a few of the many very deserving folks who contribute to trees and gardens in our communities. So let's introduce Steve Meyer, who will present this year's award. Okay. Get the mic up, please, so we can see the award.
Well, the first award is the John Aston Warder Award. And this award is given to recognize a private sector entity or individual or initiative that addresses the goals of taking root, benefits and serves as a model for protecting and enhancing our region's forests, and honors the memory of John Ward, a prominent local physician who helped create the American Forestry Association in 1875. And Jim Moranis is the winner this year. He has won for his leadership in spearheading the spring seedling program for schools, for his dedication of time, resources to ensure thousands of students in Hamilton County are exposed to the importance of tree stewardship. Jim understands the importance of engaging youth in the stewardship of our region's canopy, and for continuing efforts to grow and improve this program, as well as spread the word about taking root. Is Jim here?
I don't really have anything to say other than that we just started it last year, got a few thousand trees out to elementary school kids, and we're going to do it again in April for the second edition. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more, and thanks to Tom and also Tom Boeing, who helped us a lot bagging these trees. And we're basically giving away seedlings in the plastic bag to thousands of kids in the elementary schools, and hope they go home and put them in their yards and get a few more trees on your registry.
The next award is the Peasley Award, and this is to recognize the public sector and nonprofit entity or individual selected by the Taking Root Steering Committee for the initiative that addresses the goals of taking root, benefits and serves as models for protecting and enhancing our region's trees and forests, and honors the memory of John E. Peasley. He was superintendent of the Cincinnati schools, and he closed the schools on April 27th, 1882, so the students could plant trees in the abandoned vineyard that was actually Eden Park, where Eden Park was. So, and the winner of this year is Sherry Karen. And Sherry,
This is a big surprise, and it means a lot, so thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Heritage Award, and this is for significant contributions to improving our region's tree canopy before the before the Taking Root campaign was launched. And we're giving this award to Bobby Stern and, who else? Bobby and we also are giving it to Richard Annan too. Bobby's not here, or is she here? No, she's not. Okay. No, I thought you guys were getting this award together. Maybe.
What, you said Bobby Stern, and I'm Bobby Sternfeld.
Oh, Bobby, I'm sorry. This is Bobby Stern. Bobby Stern is the mayor, former mayor of Cincinnati, and this is given to her for groundbreaking leadership serving the Cincinnati City Council and for serving as two-time mayor, and her foresight to create Cincinnati's first urban forestry program that started in 1980, and her diligence in keeping that program in those early years. Bobby's not here. I think she's actually living in California now, and we'll be able to give this award to her as well. Yay. Is another Heritage Award. This is for Richard Amon of Amon Nurseries. And this is for instrumental role in co-founding the Boone County Arboretum and for his generosity, time, knowledge, and resources in helping to shape the horticulture of the tri-state area. And Mr. Amons, I think, passed away in the last year or so. And I think we were looking for is Chris going? Yeah. Chris, I thought we were going to be able to pass this on to you and to get it to the Angels. Yes. Get a picture.
Okay.
All right.
I'll take it across the street to Mr.
Thanks, Chris. The next one are our Johnny Appleseed Awards, and these are, we're giving one of these awards to the Madisonville team for their plantings and for creating a truly community-based tree planting effort by including local schools, businesses, and leadership and for being willing to share their experiences to help other communities start tree planting. So hopefully we've got Tim Doherty here. Tim, and we also, how about Karen Brown? Okay. And Joan Willis? She's not here. Okay. Thank you. You guys are made it. This is the second year in a row that we've done this. Third. This is now the third. So they are a model for our community groups in planning and communities. We truly appreciate it. Okay, the next Johnny Appleseed goes to the Dan Beard Council. And this is for the Camp Conservation Program, a biannual event held at the Dan Beard Council's Scott Reservation in Logan, Ohio, and Camp Michaels in Kentucky. And it's for removal of invasive species, reforestation to up to 500 native trees, and we're engaging up to 400 scouts and families. So, and we have Michael Statement here to accept it.
Just like you swear.
Damn it! Okay, here we go. We have Michael here from the Dan Beard Council.
accepting this on behalf of the Dan Beard Council of Boy Scouts of America. We're the best friends and neighbors that you might not have even heard of. There's a lot of us around. We represent a little over 30,000 youth, elementary school, all the way up through the high school folks in the area, in addition to their parents and all the volunteers that work with them. Responsible environmental stewardship has been the name of the game for the Boy Scouts of America for well over 100 years. We've been doing the green thing for some time. And to paraphrase Warren, we reserve the right to learn as we go, but we want to help more. A few hundred trees twice a year for more than 15 years. Warren has been spearheading this event at our council camps for some powerful time since before I came up from North Carolina. But if you want to get in touch with your local troop or need a helping hand or several getting holes in the ground so that we can put trees into them, we'd love to help more. So do feel free to let us know. I'll be around for the rest of the time. You can contact our main scout office in Evendale and Cincinnati on Reading Road. And this is a good step in the right direction, but just wait till you see what we'll be doing in the future. Thank you very much.
We have two awards here for the Brewster Rhodes Volunteer of the Year Award, and hopefully everybody knows who Brewster Rhodes is. And if you don't, he's one of the major volunteer people in our community. He was one of the guys who started Green Umbrella. He's since retired, I think, down fishing in Florida maybe, or on the Keys, who knows. So this award, we've got an image of Brewster in his canoe. So this award goes to the Northern Kentucky team, Jessica Spencer. And this is for sending informational packets with tree resources to forestry boards in all 3 Northern Kentucky counties for screening the Trees in Trouble documentary at the Behringer Crawford Museum and Kenton County Schools eWise program, and for 4 regional tree plantings on Make a Difference Day. Who was her compatriot in doing this?
Something on her.
Oh, you're right. And that's it for me. And I'm glad you guys came, and I hope you go out and plant some trees here.